Welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm David Pavey. Elmer Bendiner was an American navigator on a B-17 during World War II who became a gifted writer and journalist. And he tells the following true story of a World War II bombing run over Kassel in Germany, entitled The Fall of a Fortress. One night, an American bomber dropped its deadly cargo on a German industrial complex and headed for home with its crew of young men, home being an airbase in the English countryside. As the B-17 droned through Europe's black night, two things happened almost simultaneously. The probing fingers of Nazi searchlights reached into the sky ahead of the plane, and powerful anti-aircraft batteries opened up, sending a barrage of shells towards the homebound squadron. Like small meteors, the shells were exploding ahead of the bomber. The crew felt the familiar, sickening apprehension spread through the plane like clammy mist. The kill rate on nights like this often saw less than half the squadron return home. There was no way of avoiding the barrage. It was too intense and widespread. Each crew member clenched his teeth and tensed himself, waiting for what seemed the inevitable. Then suddenly, the first thud rocked the plane. A shell from the guns below had hit the fuselage. Quick prayers, a bracing for the explosion. Then more thuds in the wings and in the body of the plane. And at the same time came an awesome realization. The thuds kept coming, the plane trembling with every impact, but there were no explosions. After what seemed an eternity, the bomber cleared the field of fire, each man's eyes bulging, mouth hanging open, a mixture of expectation and mad delight. They knew they'd been badly hit several times, but they were still flying. The bomber with gaping holes in it made it back to its base in England. Mechanics and support staff swarmed all over the aircraft as the crew babbled their tale of seeming miraculous deliverance. Within moments, an engineer appeared from under the belly of the plane with an unexploded shell that he'd prized free from the gas tanks. It turned out to be one of about a dozen shells. They were carefully dismantled, and amazingly, they contained no explosive charge. All the shells proved to be empty, except one, in which they found a hastily scribbled note on a piece of paper. It was written in pencil in the Czech language. The note said simply, "This is all we can do for you now." What dawned on the American airmen that morning was awesome. Somewhere in a Nazi munitions factory, Czech slave laborers who knew full well the awful penalties for sabotage had taken a huge risk. In an effort to help the Allies to win the war, they had made non-exploding shells and had the breathtaking courage to let somebody know how the redemption of an American bomber crew had been accomplished. Well, that's the story. These slave laborers, probably Jewish prisoners, couldn't do much to help the Allies, but they bravely did what they could. They did what they could. Now, the Bible tells us about a woman who did what she could. Jesus was in Bethany at the home of Simon, a man who had previously had leprosy. While he was eating, a woman came in with a beautiful alabaster jar of expensive perfume. She broke open the jar and poured the perfume over the head of Jesus. Some of those at the table were indignant. "Why waste such expensive perfume?" they asked. So they scolded her harshly. But Jesus replied, "Leave her alone. She has done what she could, and has anointed my body for burial ahead of time. I tell you the truth, wherever the good news is preached throughout the world, this woman's deed will be remembered." The Czech munitions workers couldn't do much to help the Allies, but they did what they could. The woman who anointed Jesus did what she could. And so Jesus urged his followers, "Let your light so shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Now, you may feel you can't do much in the way of good deeds that glorify God. But the big question remains, have you done what you could? Or better yet, are you doing what you can? And thank you for tuning in once again to Village Church Connections.